Good afternoon, everybody here in Brussels, on the internet, and of course in Naples, where I can see Roland Lavoie is already waiting. Colonel Lavoie will give us an operational briefing on Libya in a few minutes. As you know, the Secretary General was in Bucharest yesterday, where he thanked President Băsescu and members of the government and parliament of Romania for the country's significant contribution to all our operations, and they discussed the way ahead to the Chicago summit. He also gave a keynote speech at the autumn session of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, where he focused on how to maintain an alliance that can provide the best security for a cost we can afford. The Secretary General made the point that we're conducting Operation Unified Protector against the backdrop of an economic crisis, and we're doing so successfully. Parliamentarians, like defense ministers here last week, agreed that our operation to protect the people of Libya has been a great success. We're pretty close to the end, but we're not there yet. We did the right thing. We saved countless lives. We did it in the right way, fast, with flexibility, involving partners from the start, and we did it for the right reasons, to fully implement the mandate of the United Nations Security Council. Now we will make sure the end of the operation will come when the time is right. We will not leave the job half done. Our mission, as you know, is to prevent attacks and threats against civilians, so we will terminate the mission once we assess that there is no longer a systematic and significant threat. And of course, there are various factors to be taken into account, including the situation on the ground, which is moving fast, and the ability of the National Transitional Council forces to protect civilians themselves. Ultimately, like the launch of this operation, the end of the operation will be a political decision. It's for the North Atlantic Council to take that political decision as soon as conditions permit, based on the assessment of our military authorities, and will coordinate the decision with the United Nations, which mandated our mission, and with the legitimate Libyan authorities. As fighting is coming to an end in many areas, it must do so in a way that respects the calls from the international community and the National Transitional Council to show restraint and avoid reprisals and revenge. We expect the new Libya to be founded on reconciliation and human rights, on democracy and the rule of law. And the National Transitional Council has a great responsibility for a smooth and peaceful transition to democracy. As the Secretary General said in Bucharest, his hope is that by our Chicago summit in May, a new democratic Libya will be among our partners, if, of course, it so wishes. Finally, a date for your diaries. Lieutenant General William Caldwell, the commander of the NATO training mission in Afghanistan, will be in Brussels on Thursday to brief on what NATO is doing to improve the quality and the quantity of Afghan security forces, and the briefing will take place at 10 o'clock at Residence Palace, and if you're unable to attend, you can, of course, send your questions by email. And with that, over to Roland for the operational update on Libya from Naples. Roland.
Thank you, Oana. Bonjour. Over the last week, we have witnessed a significant evolution of the situation in Libya, in the two remaining small pockets under pro-Qaddafi influence, Sirte and Bani Walid. Sirte is now heavily contested. NTC forces have made a significant advance, reaching the core of the city. Now that Qaddafi forces have been dislodged from the university, the conference center, and the main hospital, they have lost key positions and cannot effectively control the city or be reinforced or resupplied. Most importantly, humanitarian aid can now reach core city areas, including the hospital, and the population can now more easily escape the few remaining contested areas. The significance of these developments should not be underestimated. due to the symbolic meaning that Sirte once had as a Gaddafi stronghold, which is not the case anymore. Sirte is also the last city with a seaport under Gaddafi control, which means that soon the entire coast of Libya will be controlled by the NTC. In Bani Walid now, where the situation was static until last weekend, NTC forces have started to move towards the outskirts of the small town, from which a significant proportion of the population has already left. We have no evidence of significant pro-Gaddafi presence or activity in the rest of the country. In the light of this assessment, NATO is continuously monitoring the situation in Libya and remains vigilant. NATO is maintaining a constant presence, conducting mainly surveillance operations from air and sea to keep the required situational awareness, identifying acts of aggression against the civilian population, and intervene as necessary. Given the close quarter, fierce fighting in parts of Sirte, NATO has been and will continue to be extremely careful to avoid harming the population or causing collateral damage. Simply put, there are limitations to what NATO aircraft can do from high altitude to protect civilians in an uncertain, cluttered, urban combat environment where civilians still reside. NATO is exercising air power only when necessary and always with caution, discernment, and precision. A few airstrikes were conducted in Bani Walid over the last week to remove weapons, vehicles, and military command or staging facilities, thus further eroding remaining Gaddafi forces' capabilities to sustain combat operations, threaten the civilian population, or trigger bloodshed. So Unified Protector is pursuing its mandate to protect the civilians in Libya. Since the start of the operation, NATO has been very careful to fulfill its mandate and avoid causing harm to civilians. When we absolutely need to intervene to protect the population, we do so with utmost care, targeting only military assets and using precision-guided munitions to avoid civilian casualties. At this stage of the operation, we essentially monitor the situation but remain 100% ready to intervene where and when necessary. This is all for me, Oana.